Before I say anything at all, I just want to make it clear that I have only been watching F1 since Monaco of this year. So keep in mind, I don't know, I'm still, learning a lot of things from this sport, and I obviously don't know a lot of things compared to, other people that have watched for years now. So I've just recently gotten into F1 since, Monaco of this year. So I hope you understand that I will get a lot of things wrong. And of course, I may say some things that I have no idea what I'm talking about, but I'm just primarily saying it because from everything that I've seen so far, I am genuinely annoyed and pissed off, especially with the treatment that many people have had, mostly like the drivers in the sport so far. So, if you haven't seen the title, I will be talking about Yuki Tsunoda. And the thing that really upsets me with him is the treatment that he has had with many people watching F1, and also just the treatment from Red Bull, his own team, being complete dog shit. Now, again, like I said, I don't know too much of this, but from everything that I've seen, especially from old videos, old, races from previous years, especially from old drivers that were the second driver for Red Bull, I at least have seen how it sort of is being in Red Bull, where it's all only about Max Verstappen and that's it. The other drivers really aren't important at all. Maybe they might put a little bit of effort, but nothing compared to everything they put in Max Verstappen. And why wouldn't they? Because obviously Max Verstappen is a fantastic driver, and of course when they see that this driver can do insane things, they will dedicate all of their source or materials, whatever, all of their things that they can offer into that one person. Then what's the point, I guess, for them? It's still really stupid. What's the point in them even bothering with the second driver? And I still hate the sort of thing of a set, like two drivers, and like going one on one when it's clear that they say, oh yeah, they're in it for the championship, but it's whoever's game it is, like with Piastri and Lando Norris. But it's clear to me that the treatment with Piastri has been abysmal dog shit, while Norris has, in my opinion, I'm not saying it's confirmed, no, nothing's confirmed. I, to my opinion, I see there's more lenient on Lando Norris, but not entirely. Of course, it's nothing confirmed, so I'm just making shit up. Okay, I'm just being delusional. Um, that's just the fun of it. But anyways, moving back to Red Bull. It's weird to me how we've had many different drivers, or we've had many people like Sergio Perez. We had Liam Lawson, even though it was really short. Liam Lawson was there. Yuki Tsunoda, Daniel Ricciardo, many racers that have been there. And maybe for a while before, I guess Max wasn't there, I guess Red Bull was sort of just like any other team. But ever since Max was there, they saw how talented he was, and that sort of just switched into only them focusing on Max and nothing else. And the other ones are just really the guinea pigs of the team. And it sucks so much to me because what makes it worse for these drivers is people that are watching only ever see the results of the race and never what actually happened to the driver. Because every time I've been watching the races, I never actually see what happens to Yuki Tsunoda. I don't know what ever happened to like Sergio Perez or like Liam Lawson. It's in rare occasions they actually show the play, like live in the camera, like how his driving is, like in the team radio, what they're saying in Yuki Tsunoda's radio. They never say anything like that because, of course, they're only focusing on the top drivers so far. And I get it, I get that, but at least show some appreciation to the other drivers that are there and not just, oh, they're just a waste of space or whatever. We don't really care about them. And because of that, and people only seeing the results of the race and not thinking maybe there's a reason why he ended up like P15, P16, like dead last. No, they never speculate that, and they only sum it up to, oh, he's just a terrible driver. And even though I dislike Liam Lawson, I really do, I know for a fact that it wasn't entirely his fault for him immediately being kicked out of Red Bull and back to Racing Bulls. Because I know, even though I find him really annoying and he does a lot of stupid shit and he crashes a lot, I know for a fact that another reason, or he's already said that that car is a piece of shit and it was a nightmare to drive. And of course, there are many times where the driver itself is at fault in some situations, and it's not entirely just oh, blame everything on Red Bull. No, of course the drivers are sometimes at fault as well, because they could have a really good pace or whatever, and everything is fine, and Red Bull doesn't do anything about it. Like they don't touch it, they don't make it worse, and they end up fucking up, and it's maybe their fault. I understand that. I'm not saying it's entirely Red Bull's fault, but I hate it when people always try to bring up with Yuki Tsunoda that he was just such a terrible driver or whatever, when there are so many examples. I'm not going to really be able to show them because I'm on PS5 and I don't really want to get fucking copyright striked by ESPN, but I will say some examples that I can think of immediately. The Hungarian Grand Prix is a perfect example of what the fuck happened. In Q1, he was eliminated because, or after complaining of the severe lack of grip, which he linked to the performance issues or the new setup that they had for the car, which I don't know why they decided to do that. And I don't really want to say, or anyone to say that, oh, that's entirely Yuki's fault or whatever, because even Max was fucking up with that, or like was struggling with that. So if it means that Max is also struggling with that, then we know for sure that Red Bull is dropping the ball with that shit. And then how about the Mexico Grand Prix, which was pretty recent? In the Mexico Grand Prix, he actually had good pace, and he was in P9. And when he was in P9, he was told to pit. And when he was told to pit, he obviously went inside. And of course, when he was pitting, they had a terrible time, and because of that, it costed them easy points for Yuki Tsunoda. And keep in mind, during these races, it was really important for Yuki to perform good because his career was on the line. He was already being, it was rumored to him being replaced already with Isaac Hadjar. And of course, they dropped the ball with this shit, and it made him basically lose so many places. He went from P9 all the way to P15 and was only able to get to P11, barely missing out on points. Barely missing out on easy ass points that he could have easily gotten, even though it was all just for nothing because Red Bull fucked him over so hard. And another example is the Vegas Grand Prix. He had another great pace, but again, they fucked it up because they had the wrong tire pressure for him. I don't like really understand how people just genuinely say that Yuki Tsunoda is all at fault and he's just like overrated or a terrible driver, when the past races that I've seen, especially when I'm watching Yuki Tsunoda itself, himself, I always see, well, maybe not always, it's a hyperbolic statement, but I keep seeing every fucking time Red Bull fucking him over so hard and costing him so many points that he could have easily gotten, and just dropping the ball. And of course, in these very last few races, with all the pressure, he unfortunately wasn't able to get good points. I think in guitar, if I recall, yeah, he wasn't able to get any points in guitar, and he basically is now getting replaced by Isaac Hadjar in 2026, and now he's going to be a reserve driver for 2026 instead of being kicked out of Red Bull, which in my opinion it probably would have been better if he was just kicked out instead of being a reserve driver, because now they're just blatantly saying, oh yeah, he's for sure now our guinea pig. And that's all it really is. And I don't know, man. Like, I'm just really upset with the treatment that Yuki has had, and just the bullshit that people have just been saying of Yuki himself, because I understand. Like, I understand. There are some times when Yuki has done just like straight up fucked up. Like, he obviously is not the perfect driver. He's obviously not going to be as good as Max Verstappen. I don't expect that at all. I don't really expect that at all. It's like it's not going to happen. But to entirely say that everything that's happened with Yuki is his fault is just downright outrageous. Especially because, like I said before, the second seats for Red Bull is just downright trash. It really is. And even though the person, Sergio Perez, that has made the most points, I think, than anyone else, at least ever since Max Verstappen has, raced or whatever, has showed up or whatever, I think, prefer to correct me on that, he himself has said that anyone else will absolutely struggle with the car no matter what. Even if they did really good in racing bulls like Isaac Hadjar, even if they've gotten points in some other things, they will absolutely struggle with, being a racer in Red Bull. There's no doubt about it. And we've already had so many examples with this, but I just genuinely don't understand how people don't see, we've seen with many different racers now that Red Bull genuinely only cares about Max Verstappen and very little about any other racers. But no, let's just entirely blame the other racers, especially Yuki Tsunoda. And it just sucks to me because I really do feel like, I am a Yuki fan. As much as want him to succeed, I understand that there will be times where it just doesn't happen and I have to accept that. And but I want him to succeed. I want him to be in a team where I believe they treat him equally as the other driver, not the clear bias like in Red Bull with Max Verstappen. Like even at least with like really I don't care anyone like Haas, Ferrari, something like that. Even though Ferrari sucks ass, at least they sort of are more less biased than how it is in Red Bull. Just I want him to be in a team where they at least maybe treat him equally as the other driver and not just literally anything but Red Bull in my opinion. That's what I'm trying to say. Anywhere else but Red Bull, because if you're there with Max Verstappen, then I'm sorry, but you're going to be treated like absolute garbage or at least not be cared at all. And this is why I'm saying with Isaac Hadjar, I really feel bad for him because it's basically a demotion. Even if people say that it's a promotion, it's really a demotion because it's just basically showing you to death's door. Since all it really matters is Max Verstappen and very little about you, maybe he'll prove me wrong, and I'm really hoping he does because I actually do like Isaac Hadjar, and I do see he is a great driver. He's a great rookie. I really do like him. I really am wishing the best for him when he is in Red Bull for 2026. But with so far what we had so far with previous drivers, and even though Sergio Perez was really the best so far, I don't know. Like I'm not really expecting him to be as good as Max, obviously, but I'm just not really. I feel like I know that he will be pissed off with the car. Like I think now when he tries it, he will be pissed off, and we will all say again, all right, it's not the fucking driver entirely. It's also the fucking car and the team that just doesn't give a shit about the second driver. How is that so hard to understand? But maybe I'm just being delusional. Maybe you can just say I have no idea what I'm talking about, like new gen or whatever. Like I should just shut up or whatever and move on because Yuki's a bad driver. But to me, I don't think Yuki is a bad driver. Of course, he doesn't really show that. He hasn't really been able to show that. And just because people say, oh, he hasn't gotten to podium, well, yeah, many people haven't gotten to podium either. But at least they're trying with what they can do. And if he really was a bad driver, then it would really be clear. Like if you just look at Stroll, it would be really obvious. I'm just kidding. Any Stroll fans out there, I'm just kidding. I don't like him, but you can like him. I don't care. But anyways, yeah, I'm just really making this video because I'm really upset with the results that we now got for 2025 for Yuki Tsunoda, where he's not going to be in the grid anymore. He's going to be as a reserve driver for Red Bull instead of, just entirely leaving and going somewhere else. Like people say, like Aston Martin. I actually probably would have liked it if he was going to Aston Martin and maybe be a reserve driver there because at least he would have more freedom in there than how he is restricted in Red Bull. Because if I've been seeing a lot of comments talking about how Yuki has really been restricted on a lot of things, and he isn't really even able to talk to any other teams at all because of his contract, which is such bullshit and just it downright shows how awful Red Bull is, how restrictive they are. That if you're in here forever. Move on. You cannot talk to anyone else at all, no matter what. About like maybe moving on over there. You will not be able to do that at all. You are here until we decide you're gone, and that's why I feel like when Max Verstappen eventually retires, whenever that happens, I hope that it fails, and especially when that bald fuck Helmut Marko eviscerates from The racetrack in GTA. Nothing to say weird about that. Not wanting to say anyone to. Never mind. Just you get my point. You get my point. But anyways, I'm really just hoping that at least Yuki Tsunoda can maybe get a decent placement for Abu Dhabi. I'm really hoping at least maybe maybe in some way he could get podium, but that's a really small chance of that even happening. But as a fan, that's all we really can do, and that's all I really can say for Yuki Tsunoda. It's such a shame. I really hoped, or I really wish that he was able to show how much potential he had. But unfortunately, we will probably have to wait until 2027 until he could show it, and to show that he wasn't really the person entirely at fault on his placements and how he performed in Red Bull. It was entirely, well, not entirely, of course, but it also had to do with the team itself, Red Bull itself. Mostly it's sort of like the higher ups, like how it was with Christian Horner and Helmut Marko and whatever. But now that Christian Horner thankfully left, that fucking pervert, I feel like it did help a little bit with Tsunoda, like a little bit at least, but not too much. It's still pretty shit. Anyways, I think that's really all I have to say. I just basically made this video because I've been seeing a lot of stuff with Yuki Tsunoda, and I was really upset. I really was bummed out to see that Yuki Tsunoda is not going to be in the 2026 grid and is just going to be a reserve driver instead, which just sucks so much because as sad as I would be that he would just leave Red Bull, be kicked out, at least he would finally have the freedom that he didn't have while being in Racing Bulls and Red Bull. But nope, he's still stuck in there as a reserve driver for another whole year as a guinea pig again. And I know he said that he has no regrets or whatever, and he's happy with the time that he's been there, I guess, which I feel like is a big fat lie. I understand, it's, I can't really judge him or whatever. I'm not gonna say he shouldn't be there, it's his life, he can do whatever he wants. I just wish there was, more for him, you get my point. And I'm just bummed out, it just sucks. It really does suck. It sucks to me, I'm pretty sure for many people, to see a driver that you root for so much and pray that they can show their potential, but they're so restricted on whatever they're in that they can't show that, and it just sucks for me. I know I keep repeating myself, but I'm just pissed off. I really am. But anyways, I'm maybe hoping the best for Isaac Hadjar. Maybe he'll finally be the one that breaks the curse of, Red Bull being terrible for their second driver. But honestly, I kind of doubt it. And many clips that I've seen of Hadjar so far, of him being, easily being able to get pissed off and ragey, sort of like when Max was back then. Oof, it's going to be an interesting radio run for 2026. And that will probably at least be entertaining. But hopefully with Hadjar, if he starts performing poorly... Oh, that was another thing too. That he's also a reserve driver, Yuki, because it could be that if Hadjar doesn't perform well, then Yuki could just go in, take his place instead. But honestly, I kind of doubt that. I really do. I don't think Hadjar would just let that happen. He would try his best, but, some things are just out of his control. Other than that, I'll shut up now. And I'm just, I guess, here to say that I'll always be a fan of Yuki. I do believe in him a lot, and it's not just, me being delusional or whatever. I genuinely do think that Yuki is a good driver, and he just hasn't been able to show that, mostly because of Red Bull itself. But anyways, again, I'll shut up now. I hope you guys enjoyed my little rant. Feel free to let me know what you think. Maybe you think I'm delusional. Maybe you think, again, I'm a new gen, that I should really just shut up and just cope harder, cry more that Yuki's gone, and finally we're not going to have that trash driver or something like that, Stupid shit that I've seen so much people say whenever they're hating Yuki Tsunoda. But other than that, I hope you enjoyed. I'll see you guys next time. See ya.
Yeah, I got a few wishes. Yeah, we got a few wishes. Got why these niggas tricking. Got why these niggas tricking. Teachers say I'm different. Teachers say we different. But I chose the streets and pimpin'. But we chose the streets and pimpin'.